Hi all, I have put together some amazing queen sacrifice examples for you at chessboard.net. So if you want to find this, head to chessboard.net, register if you haven't already, log in, the improved menu, and there's puzzle books, and you'll find queen sacrifices as one of the books, which is pretty cool. Now let's have a look at this today. So I'll click start puzzles and go to large board view. So this first game is from one of my own games, actually, over the board. It was the Sleepless Night video. You can find here, actually, if you want to try putting that into your URL. Okay, so black to play here. Guess what I played in this position? If I give you 5 seconds starting from now. Okay. Queen takes e2. It does a great job of damaging g1 a bit further. It's not protected now. So then there was check, and now the king on h2. There's bishop d6 check, and mate, there's nothing stopping that being checkmate here. So that did give me a sleepless night, that particular queen sacrifice. Now on YouTube online there was this game against FM Chromos, which was great fun to play here. Can you guess what white can play in this position? If I give you 5 seconds. Okay, I thought I'd exploit the dark squares in a spectacular manner with queen f6. It pins that bishop on e6. And if black doesn't take, I'm just going to double rooks. We'll have a look at some of the variations shortly, but this is the principal variation where black gets checkmated. Now in this position, let's have a look. Rook f8, I double, threatening rook h8, checkmating. If the king tries to escape, it also provides knight g8. However, check. And this is still very good. This position is very, very dangerous. Now if bishop takes, there's the idea rook takes g8 and rook h8 again, like this. Now let's say black had moved rook fd8 instead, slightly different. This position, slightly different. Rook f8, knight g8. Bishop h7 is strongest here, and it's still very, very good for white. White's winning this. So it was a cute one to play at the time. Here's the link if you want to try that, look at that game as well. Okay, this next example, you may have seen some of these before, so that will make it easier. Black to play. 5 seconds. Okay, don't rule out the queen sacrifice from calculations, especially when it's very, very forcing like this. And that leads to checkmate. So a very, very important type of forcing move really to consider when calculating. And again here, this is an iconic example. Okay, queen d8, very, very forcing move. Bishop g5, double check. And now bishop d8 check. If the king had moved to e8, there was rook d8, checkmate. Now here, what would you play with black? Okay, an unfortunate configuration for white. Queen g3 check. Black took. And now knight f2, checkmate. If black didn't take, then actually queen takes f3, because there's actually a knight fork here for king and queen. So that's winning anyway. King and queen there. This position. 5 seconds. Okay. Check. And now f6, check. And now bishop h7, rook takes, and rook h8. Yes, it didn't really matter about queen takes d3 there, because there was rook h3 and rook h8 in any case, in case you're wondering, on f6 here. So if queen takes, check, and then rook h8, checkmate. Here, white to play. Okay, power of the queen sacrifice. With queen d5, the diagonal of death, exploited knight f7 check. We have the powerful double check, and now a classic, which I hope you all know about. The smothered mate tactic, queen g8 and knight f7, smothered mate. Now this is a game recreated in the classic 2001 Space Odyssey film, Kubrick, which was from a Romantic era game. Black to play. Okay, black reinforces the threat of knight h3 without king takes g2 by playing queen f3, protecting the bishop. And now knight takes f3 is checkmate. This is looking very tricky indeed. We're in check, so not too many moves, but do we give up after the fork? Here, what would you play in this position? Do you give up? Do you resign? It says here, never resign a one position. Okay, king takes. And now, with bishop, knight and pawn, actually, in this configuration, the check here is very dangerous. Check, and actually we're queening. So, we've come back there with a vengeance. This is tricky with the exchange down technically, but so white to play here. What would you play? There's a very nice move, g4 after f takes. It looks as though we're losing our queen, but black dare not take it there because there was knight f6 checkmate. We'll have a look at that in a moment. This opens up the diagonal. Check, and now knight f6. Let's have a look at this position again. So on queen takes, there was knight f6 checkmate here. That would have been neglecting the f6 square to have taken on b5. This is a classic. Alekhine. Apparently blindfold game, knight f7. And now, yeah, queen sack, queen takes e6. Because if takes, there was knight g5 mate. Here, knight, now there's g4 and knight h4 checkmate. Let's have a look at that on the board. King takes, there's knight g5 checkmate. So you can see queen sack's very important to calculate in games. Now here, the queen is attacked. What can we do? 5 seconds. Okay, wonderful move. Rook takes f5. And now, spectacular, pyrotechnics. Can you guess? Queen e5, deflecting, or decoying the rook away. Bishop f6 is now checkmate. Yeah, a crushing move. If rook takes, then check. And it's going to be checkmate like this, for example. Here, test your forcing moves and calculations in general with this one. White to play. Okay. Queen takes g6, opens up that diagonal. Bishop c4. Now bishop takes f8, knocking out the defender. And now this move is pretty clear cut. I believe it's this one. Putting the king there. Now there's not too many options for black. Rook d7 looks as though it's absolutely mating now. It's because that bishop is cutting g8 there. Okay, fascinating example with the d7 pawn. White to play. Queen takes f6, because now bishop g5 is a crusher, winning lots of material. We're taking the rook, and then the pawn is devastating after as well. Now this is a very tricky one to calculate. Okay, you might want to pause the video and work it all out, but it's pretty tricky actually. It starts with queen takes g6, and it's about covering escape squares and having the pieces that are covering the escape squares also protected. So check, check, but now getting a piece covering escape squares and also protected by the pawn. And then a bit of shuffling again. Rook h5 with check. Rook g5 optimal, getting this optimal position to deliver bishop f5. Now in this position with the queen attacked. Yeah, let it go. Because knight f4. Threatens knight takes h3. It's pretty devastating, this knight takes h3. It'll be winning material if not mating, if the knight moved. After, yeah, it's absolutely winning material or mating. White to play here. King in the center. I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay. Queen takes d5, opening up that e file. So winning material there. Here. Okay, you might have seen this one before. Queen h5. Rook takes d5. And now, can you guess? Queen takes f7. The bishop's covering that escape square. Knight d7 is checkmate. A cute one here. Okay. There's a crisscross of the bishops fundamentally. It starts queen d1. Now can you guess? Very forcing, knight e2. Forcing bishop takes, and now that bishop's covering this diagonal, and this bishop's covering this diagonal, which means actually knight b3 is checkmate. This position, using the power of the double check potentially. Hope you can guess. You might want to pause the video. Queen takes, knight f5 double check. The king has to move. Now knight h6 is checkmate. This position, bishop takes, and now actually just simply queen takes, because if queen takes, there's bishop b6 mate. That's just winning in that position. Here, might want to pause the video. Queen takes g7, knight takes, knight f6, and now black king's walking into another discovered check. So white's getting the material back with interest. Material up. This position. Okay, very, very forcing move. Check out the outrageous forcing moves, even if they are kind of representing a queen sack. Queen h7. And here, queen takes h6 is forcing checkmate. Let's have a look at this. If king takes a take and rook takes, this position is also checkmate. Classic rook e1 check. Can you guess? This is a real classic exploiting the light square weaknesses. Rook g1, queen e1, another wonderful. You might want to pause the video. Wonderful forcing move mechanism. Queen f1 check for bishop h3 and rook e1. Here, things start off with knight takes e5. And now bishop c4 check. Can you guess here? A wonderful move indeed. You might want to pause the video. Okay, queen takes d6, and there's a back row weakness if taking knight f7. We'll see that in a moment. But this is just winning material. White's piece up there. If we look at this position, if c takes knight f7 check, it's going to be winning that queen. With check, actually. If rook takes, then there's mating here on the back row. This one, okay, starts off rook takes d3, and that pawn's liberated. Now to celebrate that pawn, guess what is possible? Okay, queen takes e4 is actually possible here because of c2. The queen's not able to stop that pawn, funny enough. That's the right move order, by the way. If it started with queen takes, then rook takes, white doesn't have to take that. White could play queen g4. So that's the right move order for that. Here, can you guess? Okay, queen takes b8, dragging the knight away from b6, and it's checkmate with the knight and bishop. This position, okay, you might want to pause the video again. Queen d7, very powerful. C takes. Check. Check. Taking here. And there's actually quite an interesting, powerful move in this position. You might want to not play this because there's a stronger move in bishop b5. Yeah, this is really strong. There's a check now, and then d8. So holding that pawn, very important. If queen takes, then we queen without interruption. This position starts off with the double check, and now, okay, can you guess? Queen g6, h takes, very forcing stuff. Bishop h6. Now this rook's holding g6, so use this one. Rook takes, checkmate. What to play here? You might want to pause the video. Can you work it out all the way through this position? Okay. Knight takes d5, offering the queen. Now not rook b8 because there's an escape on d7. Actually stronger here. Bishop a6. The bishops are really working together. Now rook b8, and the bishop's actually got a very important role to play here in this position with bishop c8 check. Bishop takes, it ends up being a back row mate in a way. That's a duplicate on me. Okay, this position, white to play. Nice example. I'm going to pause the video. Rook e8. And now queen takes g7 for this lovely under promotion. Winning the turtle back. Rook up. Okay, here. Knight takes b4. Queen's offered there. We get access to the back row. And then we get this important check here, disrupting those pawns. So rook h8 is actually checkmate. Lovely example here. Okay, rook a8 check. Queen a1 check. And can you guess here? Leveraging the power of a double check, actually, in this position, with queen a7, getting that very interesting double check. And now rook here is mating after the bishop's delay. Is checkmate with rook and knight. Now here, knight f6, can you guess here? Okay, queen takes h6. Very important to calculate these queen sacks. Very, very forcing moves. And sometimes absolutely winning. A game from British Grandmaster David Norwood, who in real life shares this background I have here, Bahamas. Moved to the Bahamas, I believe. So here, you might want to pause the video. White to play. Queen takes c6, and now double check. Check. Now, kind of a staircase for the king, guided by the bishops. Bishop b7. Now, which way? Bishop d2 or bishop c7, you think? They both put the king on a4, but it's better to play, it seems, bishop d2 here. You're bringing the king down, but also covering b4. And you can bring the king down again here. Now, with this bishop. And now again you can bring the king down and cover b2 at the same time, which is important. With bishop c1. And now rook b2. And now knight c2. Very, very nice combination. Great beauty there. Game of Kramnik against Anand. Kramnik, I believe, playing black actually. So black to play. Kramnik's interested in this for rook h1, a similar tactic to the first one, which I played with the idea of rook, a rook move on the light squares. So here is check. Where do we want the king to go? It's interesting. This is an important decision. G5 or f5. Okay, you might want to pause the video for this. I believe it's actually f5. Because on king g5 there was queen d8. We'll see that in a moment. This position is absolutely without hope for white with that form pawn. The killer form pawn mating here. Yeah, if we look at king g5, white takes, and then queen d8 check. This position, then there's rook c3. And yeah, it's troublesome after rook takes. And that's probably a draw there. Okay. This position very forcing indeed. Black to play. Lovely form pawn example as well. Queen takes. Rook d1. And the form pawn checkmate. h3 checkmate. Great one here. Delightful. Rook e2, and can you guess here? Queen takes h2, and then knight g3. The two knights are checkmating here. Okay, this position you might find pretty tricky to comprehend. Black to play. You might want to pause the video. Okay, queen takes d4, offering the queen to this check. But there's a sting in the tail here. This rook. And the threat is rook d1 mating, so actually this is just winning material. Getting the queen back with interest. Just as an example, yeah, I mean, rook d1 is mating that, so that's absolutely winning. Black to play here. Okay. We can do something very special. Queen takes g2 looks absolutely winning. And then rook f1. Checkmate. Brendel against Dunworth. Okay, very forcing move here. Queen takes h3 for rook h4, checkmate. White's playing here. Very forcing indeed. Queen takes h7 for rook h6, checkmate. Here. Very important mating patterns to know about. Black to play. Okay. Queen g2. And then we have rook d1. Checkmate. That's covering escape squares there. And the queen's covering g2 now. Black to play. Blackburn. Great British player. Queen takes h3. Bishop takes e4 as checkmate. Black's play here. Queen takes h4. And then bishop h2 is checkmate. The bishop's cooperating very well. Here. Queen takes c4 check. That pawn pawn's helping to deliver the checkmate here. White's playing here. Okay. Can you guess? A bit of an interference as well, this one. Might want to pause the video. Interference with a bonus, knight d8, covering f7. So that was check there, and now rook e8, checkmate. And our last example, hope you enjoyed this video. You might want another queen sacrifice video soon. Let me know. Hope you enjoyed this as much as me. I believe, what can we play here? Okay, queen takes h7. Rook d8 check. And now rook h8. For rook takes f8, checkmate. So you can see queen sacrifices. These are not positional queen sacrifices. These are just queen sacrifices which have guaranteed returns, basically. Just well calculated. So not really sacrificing in a risky sense, but very, very important part of chess. Part of forcing moves. But the ability to calculate giving up your queen is very, very important in many situations, as these examples show. Hope you enjoyed this. If you want to practice these and other puzzles, you can come to Chess World and see this Queen Sacrifices book, improved menu puzzle books, so chessworld.net. You can go down to Queen Sacrifices and practice yourself. Click Start Puzzles, and there's other ones to practice as well. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what themes you'd like covered soon as well. Thanks very much.